Hi, everyone. And here we are, motivating you to think and live more creatively. I'm Rod Jones.
And I'm Angie Jones. Welcome to the Thought Robe podcast. We invite you to subscribe wherever you listen, and we are available virtually anywhere you listen to podcasts.
That's right. I know people that want to think more creatively will benefit from our weekly show. And what are we discussing today, Angie?
Well, today we are going to be speaking with Mary-Ann Prack. She is a formidable talent in the world of sculpting clay, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy listening to her.
Oh, I'm excited for this interview.
Yeah.
You know what? Before you go on to the quote of the day, I have a question for you. And I can't ask you what you had for breakfast because you were sitting right next to me.
Yeah, you were there.
So my question for you is, what is your favorite restaurant?
Oh my gosh. We haven't gone to a restaurant in so long. I don't even know what to say.
Well, I have one.
Do you?
Yes.
What is it?
It was the restaurant that we went to that was near the Vatican. In fact, it was up on the left-hand side of the square, way up that street. You walk along this big, giant wall, and there's this little restaurant tucked in there. And what I really appreciated about that restaurant, and I honestly have to admit, I can't remember exactly what I ate, but I do remember one thing. I left my passport and my little art bag underneath the table.
Oh, I remember that. Oh
and
my gosh.
They were so kind. I remembered it when we got back to the hotel. We went racing back there because it was getting late and I knew they were going to close. And so when I got there, they like threw their arms around me and go, "Oh gosh, we're so glad you came back. We found your passport." They couldn't have been any nicer.
They were so sweet and so kind. Oh, I remember that. And you know, that reminds me of when we were traveling in London and our daughter left her purse at the restaurant. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be good. We went back and they were so thankful and they were so happy because they were looking for us down the street and they couldn't find us. So they were happy that we came back. Yeah,
there's some really incredibly wonderful people in this world.
Absolutely. Kind and considerate.
You bet. So now that I know, wait a minute, you never really did tell me what your favorite restaurant was.
Well, I think...
How about one domestically?
Domestically, okay. My favorite, I think this will be your favorite too though, Rod, is the Macintosh in Phoenix.
Yeah.
We've had such good food there and such good times, and they've been really super accommodating and lovely.
Now, people are going to think that we just travel all over and eat everywhere, but that's really not the case.
No, especially lately. I'm sure everyone can relate to this right now, but really we don't go out to eat a lot anyway.
Yeah.
We eat at home.
Well, I like your choice of restaurant. That was a good call.
Yeah.
So now let's get into this secret, wonderful quote of the week.
Okay. Well, the quote is, "A sculptor is a person who is interested in the shape of things, a poet in words, and a musician by sounds." And that is by Henry Moore, the sculptor.
Henry Moore.
Yes.
Speaking of Henry Moore, I have to share this story. Yep. I remember when I was a photographer and I was lucky, fortunate enough to photograph this very prestigious art collection. It was privately owned by a very wealthy individual. And his collection was spread out in his really beautifully designed home. Whoever laid this out must have been thinking about art, because virtually every room, or as you meandered through the home, you saw all these great works of art. And we're photographing it and we're getting a little tired of being indoors. So my assistants and I decided to go outside for some daylight. And right smack in the center of that swimming pool was a very large Henry Moore sculpture.
Oh,
I'll never forget that.
Beautiful.
I think I found that to be more impressive to me than the Renoirs, Picassos, Andy Warhols, all these other great works of art that were laced throughout the design of this home.
I could see that. And the thing that really was kind of interesting about this home that you told me is they had a Warhol in their laundry room.
Yeah.
And I thought, my goodness, this is incredible.
Off of they had two kitchens. a formal one and an informal one. And there's a hallway off the informal kitchen that went down to, like you said, the laundry room. And along that wall were a whole row of Andy Warhol works of art. And most of them, if I remember right, were soup cans.
Now, you guys, can you imagine all these Warhols leading up to your laundry room? Wouldn't that be a picture to like just have this art installation right near your laundry room? And then also, you all mentioned about this home where everything just really flowed together, which is quite an accomplishment when you have so many different styles of art and sculpture, etc., in one environment that's a living environment.
Well, he was a very delightful man, very loving, kind. I loved working for him. But I think that part of the layout of this goes to the architect and the interior designer. The interior designer had impeccable taste, and she just managed to make everything work in concert. So no one piece was competing with any other piece. The furniture and everything just worked incredibly well. After seeing all that, I greatly appreciated the skills of an interior designer. And I hope in the not too distant future, we're going to have some interior designers on our show.
Yeah, that would be so nice. I think that we would like to hear their point of view as well. Now, digressing back to our original topic, which is the life of a sculptor. And that has always fascinated me because they seem like they need a lot of space and special tools to build their works of art.
That sculpting to me has a little bit of craftsmanship involved because you're using a lot of different tools and you're literally building something. It doesn't just happen, and you sit here and you have an idea. You may design it by doing sketches, but then you have to pull all the elements together, and then you have to start building it. And you can make a mistake and have to tear down a piece of it and reconstruct it again. It's a task. It's not just like going up to a canvas and throwing some paint on a canvas.
True. And then you were talking to me about sculpting in marble and stone.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, we think sculpting almost exclusively being works in marble or stone.
Right. But that's not true because you can do it in wood, metal, clay, so many different mediums. And then also, I was looking up different sculptures and things online because I knew we were going to be talking about it today. And one of the ones that go back literally thousands of years, remember Willendorf, Venus Woman?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Very popular lady.
Very popular lady, apparently back in the day and even now because she's so controversial. It has no face. It has some very cool hairstyle. But I mean,
and she's rather curvaceous.
She was the fertility symbol.
No wonder.
Yeah, but I don't know if you guys realize this, but that sculpture was only 4.4 inches tall.
Oh, dinky.
Very small, and you cannot stand it up. It does not stand on its feet. So I'm thinking she either laid down, like maybe they put it under the pillow.
Or on the lady's tummy.
Or maybe on, their stomach to induce fertility somehow, spiritually.
Well, it's an effigy.
It is an effigy.
Interestingly enough, I think a lot of sculptures or people that have sculpted historically have done it with small effigies. Native American Indians made small carvings. Just about everyone.
Egyptians. Egyptians.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Greeks, Romans, all of them.
They all did it. And a lot of them were effigies. And I suppose some of them were gods that they prayed to.
Well, maybe they were like travel size gods. They took them with each other, right?
Yeah, well.
You could be worshiping as you walked around in your toga or whatever.
As I've had the opportunity to look at sculptures, I think I've learned to appreciate modern sculptures probably more than I ever have in the past. I know that Thomas More had some impact on me, And I know that when we were living in San Diego, Balboa Park had quite a few modern sculptures here and there.
Yeah.
And in fact, we used them for photo shoots. But they really impressed me. I really think I have learned to really appreciate modern sculptures.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Rod. And they're also really tactile. They require almost a craftsman approach in the beginning, and then they end up as original works of art that people can ponder once it's completed.
Well, as I've had the opportunity to just play with it a little bit, I can really appreciate and understand that you got to have good hand coordination to create these. Mm-hmm. Another thing I found interesting about sculpture pieces from Roman times, they were never really meant to be just plain white marble, but in reality, they were all colorfully painted. It's hard to imagine because we don't ever think of those great marble statues of being anything but white.
That's so true. And it's hard to imagine that we mostly think of the marble sculptures as being completely white without any coloring or any kind of, like they didn't enhance the eyes as we could see it, but it's faded away.
Yeah. Can you imagine David painted?
No, absolutely not. It's just glorious. And the Pietà, glorious as white, because when Michelangelo sculpted it, he did it with such finesse that there's portions that look almost translucent. And I think if you were to paint it, that would just...
A little raw sienna here, a little burnt umber there.
Gosh, no.
Just to hide those veins, he managed to sculpt into the marble so
that was
beautifully.
Incredible. That was incredible.
I don't know if they enhance it. I think there's something really beautiful about a pure marble sculptor.
Oh, yeah, no.
We know that most sculptors learn their craft by sculpting clay. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think so.
After that, some of them work in metal, wood, glass, and maybe go back or work in stone.
Mm-hmm.
I've had very little experience in working with any of those mediums. Mm-hmm. I think I carved some wood once when I was a kid, but that probably is about it. What about you, Angie?
Well, I've worked with clay, and I love the way that it feels in your hands. It's very organic, and you kind of really meld with what you're doing, and that part I really love. And I love how it responds to different tools and textures that you impart onto the clay. And the firing process can be a little stressful because you don't know if it's going to crack or break apart. And I think that's where it gets tricky. And also with glazing, I think that can be a little tricky because if you're not really familiar with your glazes, it can maybe not turn out exactly the way you enjoy or want.
Yeah, and if you're doing large scale pieces in metal, you can imagine how much more complicated it gets when you have to create a cast.
Oh, yeah.
And then take that to a foundry where they pour bronze or copper. Talk about stress.
Very.
Getting back to Henry Moore.
Yes.
He no doubt spent a lot of time in foundries because a lot of his pieces are rather large scale and they're all metal. And then there's also the people that weld them together. There's giant sculptors. I can't think of the one in particular who does these really large pieces, but they're all welded together.
Wow.
Goes to scrapyard, finds different pieces of metal and welds it together. But voila, you have a sculpture.
Yeah, you do. You do. And I know you and I have wanted to chat with a very talented sculptor.
You bet.
Yeah.
Yes. And we both think that an extremely original person that we're fortunate enough to have today.
Yeah.
And I think that not only is their work extremely beautiful, it's very original, and if I dare say, it's very authentic. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like hers. So who is our guest?
Very true. Well, today our guest is Mary-Ann Prack, and she is one of those sculptors that works in clay.
Plus, she's not only talented in sculpting it, but probably the trickiest part is glazing. I find that to be the trickiest process. If you can learn how to glaze properly, it pulls everything together.
True, and so excited to have her today.
MaryAnn, welcome to the Thought Row podcast. Both Angie and I have been really looking forward to chatting with you. In fact, we've been looking forward to chatting with you for quite some time.
Yes, because we see your work on social media. So hello, and it's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. I feel the same about you. I'm really happy to be here.
How nice. How nice. Now, you are a very creative and talented artist, and we're so excited to talk to you about your career as a sculptor. But before we begin, we like to start our show by asking you what you had for breakfast.
Okay. I had oatmeal with bananas and cinnamon and almond slices.
Ooh, healthy.
Breakfast.
Yeah, very healthy.
Heart healthy. Good for you.
So, well, yes, thanks.
And then I know when we talked earlier a little bit, you said that you live in a very beautiful part of the U.S. Tell us about where you live.
Okay, I live in North Carolina in the northwest corner of the state in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And the mountains and the scenery is just gorgeous. And we're about 33,000 foot elevation.
Oh, okay,
and,
cool.
Yeah.
You get any snow there?
Yeah, do you get snow?
Oh, yes. We get quite a bit, but the season isn't very long.
Right.
So we have 4 seasons, but they're kind of distinctive and just sort of perfect.
Season's light, then you don't get it too intense.
Yes.
Sounds
exactly.
Sounds like the perfect place for an artist.
It really does.
Yeah, it is. And because of that, there's many artists in this area, artists and craftspeople, and it's just some really wonderful people. And we've been here 26 years.
Oh, great.
Long time.
Yeah.
Well, my question for you has to do with your sculptures. And MaryAnn, your sculptures are extremely original. And I might add maybe authentic to that. I know Angie and I really enjoy looking at your work, both on social media and on your website, where we've looked at a lot of your work. Tell us how you came to develop your unique, but I call it formidable sculpting style.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. It's been a long sort of natural process.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at the things I've done that have influenced, my work, it's things like my early environment as a child with my family of architects and artists and just creative people, and then sidestepping an art college to go to a school for interior design. That really influenced my work, drafting and that sort of thing. So, but then when I discovered clay, I was not happy with interior design. It wasn't creatively fulfilling. So I took courses at Florida Atlantic University in ceramic sculpture, and that's when everything just kind of came together. And I proceeded pretty quickly with developing a certain style and technique. And it wasn't something intentional; it just evolved. And I think it's from my culmination of background and just personal, taste and my spirit, all that just sort of came together in what I do, what I've done for like 30 years.
Right.
It certainly comes through in your work. We can see
Thank you.
I was curious, did you ever assist any other sculptors while you were developing your style?
No. Was never asked. Anyway, but I have visited a lot of sculptor studios. I have friends that are sculptors, but I really haven't worked together with other sculptors. I kind of like to work just by myself, and because I like to focus completely and be totally in the moment and that. But I have that's about. Yeah.
That's really a good. I like that phrase that you said, being in the moment, because that's really important.
Yeah,
as an artist. and really being
so
present instead of being, getting into the, oh, I don't know what to do. It's more of, oh, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I like that.
Right.
I think it shows.
Exactly.
I think it really shows in your work.
I love it. And I also have a question for you. Did you have any mentors that came into your life that you just went, oh, thank you for just being here?
Family. I had family that were involved in art, and I really hadn't before the internet. I was sort of getting ideas from what to do through magazines, art magazines, and where to apply, and that. So I didn't really have a mentor until now, and Sergio Gomez has the Art Next Level, and I'm part of that now, and it's been very helpful, especially during this COVID thing, and just to have a connection and guidance as to how to about the business of art,
and have an art community around you a little.
Exactly. So it's wonderful. So did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Beautifully.
Thank you so much.
So that leads me to mine about scale. Your sculptures can be quite large. In fact, some of them that I've seen outside are quite large. What are some of the challenges that you face in each of the sizes of these sculptures that you create?
Okay. The challenges would be the size of my kiln. I have a kiln that's, people think it's massive probably, but the height is 40 inches that I can use by 24 inches. So the pieces have to be able to fit in that kiln. And so I work in sections quite often. Mm-hmm. And the sections make the pieces interesting too. I think sometimes when you have challenges, the limitations are very helpful. There's a piece in particular that references this. I lost track of the height. I was into the piece and didn't focus on that. So it was about 5 inches too tall. So I had to cut the head off.
Oh no!
Like a third of the head off, and it actually turned into a really nice design element. Oh, and it's much better that way. It was meant to be. So yeah.
You had to edit it then. That was kind of cool.
Right. And it worked out better than it would have. So, but, challenges of the size and that. And for the outdoor pieces, I use steel as well. There's support with steel and that.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because it really gives you a different medium as well as the clay that you use. So that gives a lot of texture to your pieces.
Very impressive, though. If you're walking through a park and you see one of MaryAnn's sculptures, I mean, it stands out.
Definitely.
And also, you have such a defined style, which is very difficult for artists to do. You have such a defined style that when people see a piece of your work, they go, oh, I know who that artist is. And that's probably the greatest compliment any artist could ever receive, is when other artists or other people that aren't necessarily into art, they go, oh, I know who that is. I think we're very happy that you've achieved that goal. That's not an easy one to achieve, by the way.
It isn't. Yes, and I'm very happy about that too. And there's a gallery that represents me in Asheville, and they have a big window in the front, and my sculpture's there, and people often say, "Oh, that's Mary-Ann Prack," that tell me that they saw my work there just driving by. So.
Wonderful.
And they don't slam on the brakes and go in and open their wallet?
Oh, yes, of course they do. Of course they do. No, that part, no. Sometimes.
My question is do you principally, what is your principal material that you use to make your sculptures? It's clay, right?
It's clay, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then how long? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mary-Ann.
Well, I was going to say it's a medium that there's so many possibilities with using this material that it's just incredible. The shapes, the sizes, the surface in decoration, or whatever. It's limitless, and it can be very precise too. And a lot of, I won't compare, but to other clay. Originally, clay seemed to be more gargoyles and just amorphous shapes but it can be more precise than that. And it is, a lot of artists are doing precise work. But but I just love the medium. And it also, another advantage is that I have control over every stage of the process. And so that is nice too.
As a man,
I don't have to send it to a foundry.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, you control it. As a man, I really like looking at you sculpting with all those tools. I'm always fascinated by the various tools you're using to shape that clay, and you seem to do it with such finesse. I'm not sure guys have that kind of finesse, but you drag that tool over that clay, and it seems to yield everything you want out of it. That's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
That's correct. And the line work, I use a knife and incise the lines, and it's all hand. It's just free-handed, and somehow if I'm working on it, I work on a turntable, so somehow a line will just end up on the other side at the exact right point.
Good for you.
That is
meeting
so
another.
lovely.
I know it's just that it's so so in the moment. So there's a rhythm to it and everything, and it just happens. It doesn't always happen that way, but I'm saying that it can, and it's a really nice feeling.
Well, you'd have to just scrub it out, right, and reshape it.
Oh yeah, that's easy. No, I mean to take the line.
Yeah, no, to have it match up. Sure, I can understand.
Yeah.
So how long does it take you to make your sculptures?
That depends on the size, but the minimum length of time to have a finished piece would be like 5 or 6 weeks because of drying time.
Oh yeah,
more than anything.
Yeah.
And so
that's really interesting to know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It appears to me that with your sculptures starting out as abstract clay figures, how do you manage to create ones that withstand, and we talked about this a little bit, but withstand the outside elements? I mean, you're, like you said, you're in an area where you have 4 seasons and you have snow, which means it's going to be cold.
Yeah. Well, the clay is a very strong material, and it has been used for centuries, for decorations, buildings, and for a lot of things. But it has to be fired to a vitreous state where moisture can't get into it, and that's helpful. But it's a very strong material, and I use a specially formulated clay that is made for sculpture, and so that's part of it too.
You must be bringing that in by the truckload.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, I do get truckloads of like 500 pounds each time, but I don't mass produce them or get
No, we understand.
They take time, so anyway.
Yeah, 5 weeks. That's and drying time that seems to be pervasive in a lot of different forms of art. Because you got to wait for the thing to dry.
Sure. Yeah. So I do a lot of different pieces at once. So I have several things going at once.
Now I'm going to be snoopy with my next question, because when we've seen photos of the interior of your home, where you have many of your art pieces displayed, which I might add are beautifully displayed in your home, Rod and I have noticed that you have a favorite book on your table.
Oh.
Tell us about your book and what it means to you.
Oh, okay. It's called Oh Appalachia, and it was written by Ramona Lempell and her husband Millard. And she became a very good friend of mine. I first met her when she came to one of my studio tours about 10 years ago or more. And she loved my work, bought a piece right away, and she was like a mentor to me, and she was a wonderful person. But she ended up with about 10 sculptures and paintings and drawings, and just a really fabulous person. She passed away a year and a half ago. And,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but she was wonderful, and it's fantastic. So,
well, on a little bit of a lighter note, we know you have a loving family. You obviously have one that knows a little bit about technology because you leaned on him today.
I'll say.
How has their support for you when you're in the process creating? I mean, where are they, and what are they doing while they know you're sequestering yourself to be creative?
is that how they're helping me? Like they help me by moving the sculpture and quite a bit, like into the kiln or to an exhibition. There's a lot of physical work that they do. And, but was that the question? Is what they do to help me? I mean, and with engineering, even my husband, kind of, well, I want this head to do this. How am I going to do it? And he'll talk, we'll talk it out and figure out how it could be done. Like some heads appear to be floating in the air, but they're attached. So things like that.
No, you're answering it.
They're just amazing.
Yeah, we wanted to know if they were involved in your process, and
very
if so,
much so,
how.
yeah.
Or, like some artists, they'll kick everybody out of their studio and say, I don't need your help. Don't come in here ever again.
Oh, when I'm working, they're not there. I mean, they have other better things to do than watch or, just, and I like to, be concentrating. And
well,
so
of
it
course.
works out.
That way you can get into the zone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Now, we know from our own personal experience that creating a work of art creates solitude, like we were just talking about. Tell us about your creative experience when you go in the studio.
Your routine. What's your routine like?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, first of all, I enjoy the solitude. I don't mind it. But so my studio is downstairs in a basement, but it's I guess a half basement where one wall is windows and there's a walkout to the sculpture garden. So I go downstairs, and it depends on whether I'm working on a sculpture, painting, or what. But I just put on the music. That's the first thing, and just if I'm in the middle of it, I'll just start in again. So
that sounds lovely. I just have a question though. What kind of music do you listen to?
All kinds. Like Ryax right now, and Ed Sheeran, Chris Bodie, Andrea
yeah, we know him.
Bocelli,
Yes. Bocelli.
Yeah.
I mean,
wonderful.
It's quite a broad spectrum.
Just curious, because I like to listen to music.
60s.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I used to listen to more music than I do. I mean, I have a nice sound system in the studio, but for some reason, I don't turn it on anymore. I think I like
that.
Yeah, I used to listen to classical music all the time, and then I just stopped, and I kind of like just letting my thoughts drift while
Silence,
I'm creating. And that'll probably change again and kind of go in and out with that. But my question, follow up to what Angie just asked you, is about the sanctuary aspect of being creative. Yes, you go into your studio and that's your zone where you get into your creativity, but you also mentioned you have a sculpture garden. Do you go out, and I'm assuming you go out into your sculpture garden, walk around, do a little meditation? Does that give you some inspiration?
Yes. Most definitely. And just being here where I live, it's just a small little group of homes, and I walk around the neighborhood with hills and that, and that's very nice. And
that sounds so nice, so lovely.
Yeah, it is. We have trees all around, and it's quite pretty.
Just so lovely. I know this is going to be a tough question, but
that's why we ask you and not ask it of ourselves.
I know, don't ask us.
It's easier
to
ask somebody else this question,
right? Because I don't know what I'd say, but I know that.
Oh dear.
Well, what is your philosophy about the value of sculptural art in your life?
Well, I can only speak about my own art or my own sculpture.
Yeah.
And it just is a source of joy for me. When they're finished and I'm living with them, they seem to have personalities, individual personalities, and an energy. And, it's just really pleasing. One of my favorite places to be is in the living area where I can sit and look at them and just... It's nice, and it's nice that you can walk around them and touch them and that. Do I sound weird?
No, in your particular case, it seems to me. I mean, art does talk back to the artist. In fact, I wrote
Absolutely.
an article about that one time.
Mm-hmm.
And you reconnect with it, and you see things in it that you didn't even realize that you added to it or put into it. And sculpture, I don't need to tell you this, is 3D. And one time you mentioned, or I heard you say, that the nice thing about your sculptures is you can walk around it. They have a front and a back. It's not just something that you have to stick in a corner so nobody can see all the wires and the magic behind it. Yeah, you can walk around yours, which is a beautiful thing.
Very true.
And in a lot of them, they have two fronts. So the fronts are connected, and yet they're different. You get quite a different look if you turn it around. And if it does happen to be against a wall, you can turn it around.
Well, I can't wait for our listeners, and Angie will give information a little bit later, but I can't wait for them to check you out and look at the fine work that you're doing. My question related to this is, it's hard for some people to understand the amount of work that goes into making a sculpture, especially, I believe, if you're working with clay and similar materials. Your works have not only are they very original, but they have a commanding presence.
Oh yeah.
What do you think? What do you attribute that to? I mean, they really. I mean, it's hard to imagine that when you look at a piece of art through a piece of glass on a computer or an iPad or a phone. God forbid the phone, but it's hard to imagine just the energy and the beauty that your work is emoting, if I will.
So true. I agree, Rod.
Yeah. So what do you attribute that? No, go ahead.
Well, they are better in person, if I can say that without sounding.
Of course you can. Yeah. Every artist should say that because it's true.
Yeah. And there is a tremendous amount of work that you can't see, and you have no idea what's involved, especially like dealing with glazes and what glazes will run, what won't, what ones are fired at the same temperature. So, there's a lot of thought and whatever goes into just color. It's not like with a painting where you can just mix the paints and just use them. You have to really think things through pretty carefully.
Well, it's mechanical, right? I mean, it's a mechanical process. You're actually you're actually building something from scratch.
Yeah. I start with just a bag of 25-pound bag of clay and use several of them. But it's amazing what you can do. What else was I going to say?
That's okay. You covered it well.
And then I am really kind of amazed when you are able to predict how your glazes and finishes are going to turn out in the completed pieces once you've kilned them and cooked them. And it's like, so that is such a creative process onto itself. So I'm like in awe. This is so cool.
Well, and the glazes are a totally different color than they will be when they're fired. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Because that's the case, yes.
Yes. So when you do that, it's like you really have to have a very good control of your medium. And for that, it's amazing. And
be able to visualize, what it's actually going to be.
Yes.
Because it can be confusing that, you're seeing gray and that's going to turn like a black or whatever. So,
exactly.
It's interesting.
Exactly. Now, if someone wanted to pursue a career as a sculptor, what would be your advice?
What would be your number one suggestion?
Yeah. If they're just starting out.
Just make sure, I don't know. I would think that, you have to really be passionate about sculpture, about what you're doing, because it's a lot of work. But if you really love it and are willing to put in the time and effort, then I think it's great. Go ahead.
You have obviously been very dedicated to it. It certainly shows through your work. And then we know, or we've seen some of your 3D wall art that looks like a combination of sculpting and painting. Is this something that you've been experimenting with? It's very clever, some of the stuff you've been doing.
Thank you. I started with a project. I had belonged to a group of 12 artists. It's called Art Mix, and it was a project that they came up with to do something that represented you. It was called Inner Landscape. And so I came up with the 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional, because that's who I am as an artist.
Yeah.
And it was on a wood panel, and I just loved doing that. And so I just did it again in a series, because I usually don't work in series. But I just love the concept of the two mediums. And I think, too, as a sculptor, I think like a painter as well as a sculptor. Yeah. Because, dealing with color and line and texture and everything, I think both in form and in the 2-dimensional surface when I'm looking at when I'm working on my sculpture. So, I really enjoyed doing that series, and
quite
I'd
nice.
like to do something with it later. Thank you.
Yeah, they're quite nice.
Right.
Thanks.
And then earlier you were talking about your family room, and most people have a family room, but tell us about yours, because I think this is so cool.
Well, just next to my studio area is a room that we've devoted to sculptures that aren't being shown anywhere else or in our house. So, but when they're all together like this, they look like, they're talking, they're communicating, they're just sort of hanging out together.
Part of the family.
So, part of the family. And that, one day they're going to be adopted and whatever. It's just very strange, but it's fun. And when people are visiting my studio and that, they walk in and just say, wow, this is amazing. But
that must be so
and
cool.
I have a drawing that my sister made of my family, a caricature of us all, and we all look kind of bizarre, but it's very well done. And so it's called The Family. So,
nice.
My story.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was such a beautiful, upbeat answer.
I love it.
Now I'm going to hit you with something that's a little maybe on the opposite side. Do you ever have doubts about what you're doing creatively?
The work itself, I don't doubt, and it sounds strange that I don't doubt. I mean, I could have a bad piece or that, but I never have doubts about what I'm doing. But I have doubts about, making a living at it. Like, am I crazy that, is this ever going to be,
No, that's a tough one.
I do make a sort of a living, but it's, but yeah, about the work, I just feel when I'm working, it's happening the way it's supposed to happen, and people respond so beautifully and have
I always like to say people just need to know you're alive and well and you're creating, and they'll find you.
Very true.
You're unique enough to where, you're already been discovered, and you'll just continue to be discovered more and more.
Thank you.
Worrying about how to be compensated with it, that's the plague of every creative person.
Oh, yes, definitely.
But I like your answer about your confidence in your creativity.
I love
that really, and that shows in your work, I believe.
Thank you. I think too, when I'm in the studio, I'm most myself. I feel confident. I feel, energized, and sometimes, anyway, that's when I feel I'm most myself, and it's a wonderful feeling.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, a secure environment of where you feel comfortable and you feel like your true essence really comes out, I think, and that's where it shines. It definitely shines.
Thank you.
My question is where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, I have occasionally will visualize myself speaking to a group of people that absolutely love my work, and maybe in a major museum and with a retrospective of my work. So maybe that is where I'll be. But then I thought, well, if not, I'm probably where I'm meant to be, in this journey. A lot of times you think, well, this is where I'm supposed to be. I really, really want to be. But in fact, where you are is actually where you really need to be. So anyway, does that make sense?
That's a beautiful answer.
It absolutely does.
Which leads me to my one. My question for you is, what do you want to be most remembered by? What's the one thing you want people to remember you by?
Well, I'd like to be remembered for my sculpture, and that it was significant, and that it had a place in the world, in the art world, and that a follower said a really interesting thing along this line. He said, "I hope you are remembered." And I thought that was very, very nice thing to say. And
well, I'm pretty sure you will be.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Such a talent.
I never knows. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And my question, I asked this, I think that we started it a couple of episodes ago, but the answers were so interesting. And I would love to know what you have to say about if you could sit on a park bench and chat with anyone from the past, who would it be?
I think Georgia O'Keeffe would be the person that I'd like to sit with. And I love her work. And, she's such a strong and stoic, or was, person. And just to be in her presence, it would just be amazing.
Would you like to have a hat like hers?
Yes.
Yes. Don't we all? She had a cool hat.
And be photographed by Stieglitz.
Oh, yes.
It's always nice when Angie and I first met. I was a photographer and was for quite some time, and so I couldn't quite figure out if she liked me because of who I was, or is it because I was always taking photographs of her.
Great.
So.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure it's both. It was both.
It was both. I admired your talent, but I really liked you. I thought you're a cool dude.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
MaryAnn, you've shared some really interesting thoughts and ideas, very insightful, I have to say. I think both Angie and I really appreciate you taking the time and letting us interview you. Our audience is going to love this. I mean,
Absolutely.
You were so genuine and so forthcoming with your feelings and your thoughts. It's not only reflective in your art, but also in your charm and your personality.
Absolutely.
We're so happy you took the time.
Oh,
yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you invited me, and I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. And also, I wanted to let everyone know out there, if you want to know more about MaryAnn and her artwork, we will have links in the show notes. And also under the show guest tab on our ThoughtRowPodcast.com website. So everyone can visit MaryAnn's website and learn more about her. And please don't forget to connect with her on social media. So
thank you. Thank you, MaryAnn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
I'm really glad you tuned in today. We hope you enjoyed the thoughts and ideas we shared with you.
We post a new podcast every week, so remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. So it's bye for now from my husband Rod and I, wishing everyone a great day.